Hi, are you ready to have fun with astrology? I sure am. I am showing you one of my all time favorite charts. You can see here that it is Kurt Cobain. I defy you to find a more ridiculous chart than this chart. Out there, if you want to have some fun with Googling, there's a hypothetical chart for Jesus that is more ridiculous than this chart. I think it just has a crap ton of Pisces, but that's the only other one that comes to mind. And it's like hypothetical, obviously, for so very many reasons. But um, if you are a little bit more than new to astrology, so if you've been doing it for a while, my first hint to you as to why this is ridiculous is count the number of planets in water. Go ahead. So, for those of you who are new to astrology, I will tell you that Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio are the water signs. And here's Scorpio, so two Scorpio, as well as the South Node, which is a very, very, very heavy energetic pull towards Scorpio behavior. Then over here, this is the Sun in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces, Venus in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces. So what? And this is Chiron. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's a planetoid. It's not a planet. I do 10 planets total, and then you do the ratio of how many are in something. So far we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cancer moon, 7. Jupiter in Cancer, 8. 8 out of 10. Because the two planets that are not in water signs are here. So this is Pluto in Virgo and Uranus in Virgo. So I want to tell you a couple things about this chart, but I think what I wanted to do to make the point that I want to make essentially with this video is tell you about generational aspects. So generational aspects are things that happen in the sky for quite some time. So roughly everyone born at about the same time has them. So for Cobain, and this is why I picked him, he has the generational aspect of Pluto and Uranus. These are incredibly slow-moving planets. So I forget how many degrees a year Uranus can move. So far this year, I think it's done either 7 or 8. Pluto moves even slower. So when these two get together, they stay together for quite some time. So everyone born in 1967 has this aspect. What makes Kurt Cobain special is that this aspect, which these are two extremely heavy hitters, when they get together, they leave a generational imprint that is heavy. Anything with Pluto is going to be heavy. But this heavy generational aspect appears on Cobain's ascendant, which means that no matter what he does, and I realize that he is no longer with us, but I may play around with tenses in this, he embodies the energy of Pluto and Uranus. And I talked about this in writing. This is a perfect way to make my case and to have the example here. Is these are both in the 12th house, so above the ascendant, because this is the ascendant line. And again, for those of you who are new, the ascendant line is the exact degree that was on the horizon when you were born. So when he was born, Uranus was exactly within 5 minutes on the ascendant, and then Pluto. These are a chunk. They are chunked together. Anything. I mean, I try to keep my orbs or space between planets tighter, but you could argue that anything within 10 degrees, so this over here, the moon and Jupiter would be more than 10 degrees because it's 12 degrees, but these two are very tightly together. So a couple of thoughts on what a Pluto-Uranus conjunction might appear as. Conjunction just means together. Pluto confers importance and a great amount of depth to whatever it touches. So the visual that I always use when I'm explaining it is it's like the floor opens up under whatever that planetary energy is. So Pluto and Uranus together opens up the floor under Uranus. So it is kind of a make or break life on being different or fitting in. It is about the whether or not you rebel and the consequences of rebellion, going your own way and the consequences of going your own way, being a genius and the consequences of being a genius. These are in the sign of Virgo. So it's, and Virgo tends to be kind of myopic. So Pluto and Virgo can be very myopic. So it could be this form of genius that is very precise and very narrow in what it will accept, or narrow-minded, and that's a thing that you would hope to overcome in your lifetime, is being able to see more broadly and not get locked into a sense of hopelessness and futility. Uranus is a very, very mental planet, so it's about inspiration. It can be about inspiration, so the floor opening up under whether or not you're inspired, because that's going to motivate you to do something or not do something. So those are a couple of examples, and as I was saying them, I was having mental images of things that happened in the 90s, because that was the time where this generation of people was experiencing their heyday. So this is, no matter what Kurt Cobain did in his life, he was going to appear to others as embodying this type of energy. And because it's in the 12th house up here rather than the first house, which would be down here, he might not identify it as consciously. So things that are under this line in the first house, you are much more likely to identify consciously with. I would argue that over the course of his lifetime, he began to embrace it more and more. But you can, there are numerous song lyrics of his that are, kind of taking things to extreme, which is a Uranian thing. But a lot of the time, people were arguing that he was joking. So that's kind of a really good example of oh, I'm super serious, or oh, I'm super different, except I'm not, because I don't exactly identify this, but I'm going to do it anyway. That is more of a 12th house thing, or again, another 12th house thing is being in touch with the ethos. So the ethos of your generation, but you are forced through kind of this narrow portal to embody and exude this kind of overwhelming energy of I know how everyone feels, and with a chart with this much water, you're acutely aware of how everyone feels, and you're trying to force those thoughts and ideas through how your persona appears to other people. So those are some ideas. I mean, obviously, I'm doing this in retrospect. I'm not, if I was in the 60s reading a chart for him when he was born, I think I'd be wow, a lot of creativity, which is water, and a lot of potential for extreme focus, which is this, almost to the detriment of everything else. You can do what you set out to do as long as you don't get too in your feelings, because getting super in your feelings is going to destabilize you. Just that's what this chart says. I'm sure it says many other things, but that's what this chart says. Okay. Another thing that that is necessary to point out is that he's got Saturn here and he's got Chiron here. These are also pretty slow moving. In Chiron, speed depends on the sign that it's in. It's very erratic. Another topic for another day. But having Venus sandwiched in between these two is, when you see Venus and Saturn together, usually it's a low self-esteem thing. It also means that you really, relationships, love relationships are very important to you, as well as creativity is also very important to you. But you have to mature and grow up into it in order for it to really work for you. So you can either be the person who puts way too much effort into relationships, way too much priority into relationships, or not enough. It is something that you just kind of feel out over your lifetime in a Goldilocks type of way. But Chiron here on this line, Chiron is this it is a hard to describe planetoid. Basically, we refer to it fondly as the unhealable wound. And I hate that because it just implies that something is spoiled and there's nothing you can do about it. That's where all of the astrological literature goes. You can learn to live with it. You can realize that you can help other people to do whatever that signifies for themselves better than you can do it yourself. So, like, he might have been the type of person to give really good relationship advice despite his relationships being messed up. I don't know. Didn't know him personally, obviously. But this group of things together is just a lot of intensity about friendships, love relationships, socialization, and also art. So it would compel you to make art. It would make you feel like nothing was good enough and make you a perfectionist. But you could also be really motivated to produce and to relate and to socialize and to value your friendships. It depends on how you work this energy. I will also say that Chiron in this position does tend to attract broken birds, and I will just leave that there. Okay, really what I want to say here is when you have this much intense energy on these lines, so I'm going to show you the lines, they're bold, but this is the ascendant, this is the descendant, this is the bottom of the sky, or what we call the IC, and this is the midheaven, or the MC. Anything on these lines will play out in someone's life in a way that is super obvious, at least to the chart holder, if not to everyone around them. The IC is going to be the least obvious because it is the bottom of the chart or the bottom of the sky or the things that are the most hidden. So if you see Pluto or Neptune here, leave that person alone. Don't ask them what is going on with that Pluto or that Neptune. The Pluto here can really give you some emotional issues. Neptune here can give you just a empty sense of self. I've met a number of people, and this isn't prescriptive, and this isn't me saying if you have it, then this is what that is. I also know somebody who has Pluto here who's like a really good natural psychologist. And Neptune here can also be somebody who's really spiritual deep down, but they don't necessarily want to share that with people. This is not public. This up here in the 10th house, public. This in the first house, obvious. Obvious when you walk into a room, you can't hide it. This in the 7th house, obvious and public. And, you know, your relationships are something that everybody can see. Or if you have enemies that you agree that you're enemies, that's this house as well. So if it's, you know, my known nemesis, they hate me, I hate them, that's here in the 7th house. It is a real thing. I could make this personal, I'm not going to. Okay, so if you have something that is a generational aspect on any of your lines, you are going to embody that generational aspect, and that is going to be a lot for you growing up. Because anyone who is your age, anyone who is born the same year, is going to double down on the energy. It is going to compound it. It is going to feed it back to you constantly. It is going to make it hard for you to feel like you can get free of your own issues because everyone around you is reinforcing the issues. That sounds loaded. I said it in a way that was really intense. I have that personal experience in my own life, and I also have some illustrations to show you that what typically happens when you have this type of energy on an angle or in your chart in a really profound way that everyone around you is going to reinforce that energy. You tend to hang out with people who are not your age, as long as they're not exactly your age, because if you're born in the same year as Kurt Cobain, Saturn is around here, Chiron is around here, Pluto and Uranus didn't move, they're exactly here. So actually, I can further point out that Neptune also didn't move. So people your own age, while they would reinforce some aspects that in the worst reading of them would be something of a personality disorder, and I'm not maligning the man. I like him a lot. I respect his art a lot. Neptune also didn't move, and Neptune adds like creativity rocket boosters to other water planets in his chart. So it's not all bad news, but you will have the want to outrun specifically this energy and specifically this energy, because everywhere you look, since when you're in the same grade as someone, you're surrounded by people your age, you're gonna go a few years up or a few years down. So, here's something that's helping me make my point, or someone. It's Courtney Love. See? 1964. So, as you can see, her Pluto and her Uranus, she still has the same conjunction. It's 5 degrees apart. That definitely counts. Same issues, but I can see her ascendant is here, her IC is here, her MC is here, her descendant is here. Pluto and Uranus are not interfering with any of her lines, so it is not as urgent for her to portray this type of energy, nor, Pluto, this Pluto and that Pluto are pretty close, but it's not acutely close as it would be if she had her Pluto at 19 degrees Virgo. And Uranus is well out of the range over here. Also, her Chiron over here with Mercury. So the stuff that was wrong with her, that she felt was wrong with her, is with Kurt Cobain's Mercury, which is his ability to understand some of her malfunctions. And again, something that I talked about before, but hey, here it is again. Her Saturn is on his sun. And you see Saturn, a very active Saturn, in a lot of relationships. The Saturn person tends to restrict the Sun person. If the Saturn person is younger than the Sun person, the Saturn person can usually, like, quote unquote, grow up enough to be in the relationship. But the Saturn person does tend to put restrictions on the Sun of, if you want to be with me, it has to be this way, or it has to be within these parameters. Saturn-Sun contacts are binding, which is good for long-term relationships, but bad if you want to get out of them. And she has a Saturn-Uranus opposition that's a little bit more, just a little bit more intense than his own Uranus-Saturn opposition. These don't look like exact lines here, but they are, because there's just so much energy down here that the charting software doesn't have a place to put these different icons, essentially. But his sun is in the middle of the Saturn-Uranus opposition for her. So he's triggering some of her issues, either with authority or needing to be different, or balancing those two, because Uranus wants to be the rebel and Saturn wants to be conservative, usually. And then the Pisces-Virgo split, which they both have, it's just navigating. That can be self-esteem stuff. It can be how hard do you work, how much do you let go of, or the need to, how do I say it? The need to dissociate versus the need to be extremely attentive to reality. I see other stuff that I could talk about, and oh, you know what? One thing that I do want to talk about before I switch. He has a Cancer moon, she has a Cancer sun, so what he's looking for in a woman is usually Venus in Pisces and moon in Cancer. Those are the two signifiers of women in charts. So he's probably looking for someone with Cancer, possibly, or Pisces, or a blend, and these signs get along, so that's relatively easy to unpack. But she just naturally embodies what he unconsciously feels, kind of like deep down. She just naturally kind of does in being a Cancer. So that is really useful for relationships generally. I'm not, and then I'm not going to comment, but I'm going to make a different point. Dave Grohl, Pluto is on this side of his ascendant, the more conscious side. And Saturn is way over here because Dave Grohl has a 2-year age difference. And see how far Neptune hasn't moved. It's only 4 degrees away from where it was. Pluto is 6 degrees from where it was. Saturn is gone. Way over here. But this is so I guess the easiest way to say this is having this Pluto in the first house kind of takes some of the 12th house again, struggling with words. Taking some of the 12th house feelings and impulses, and it's kind of the 12th house is a wishy-washy place, so you can't quite put your finger on what it is you're feeling or what the issue is. And then to have somebody with Plutonian energy right on your ascendant, if you don't already have Plutonian energy close to your ascendant, it's uncomfortable to deal with. But this can help to intensify it and then also kind of spew it out or make it like bring it down into reality. So taking the stuff from a creative place and then grounding it and making it real, especially in Virgo. So he's good for that. But not the same age, just the same thing as Courtney Love, not the same age. So you'll see this again and again with people who have different generational aspects. They start to avoid, and not even on purpose, they avoid people their own age because of the compounding of that energy. Or when they do have to deal with people who compound their energy, they can either lean into old bad habits or really fight with them, either because they don't like their own energy and they're trying to outrun it or trying to disown it. That can be a reason. Or they're trying to outgrow it or grow into something else, and maybe that person is holding them back. So it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then the person with the same energy forces the issue because it's just more comfortable for them to maintain the status quo. So this is a thing that I see that I just wanted to call out because it's not something that's talked about in a lot of places that I've seen, but it is stuff that I've experienced. So I thought that I would use this great example to share with you. So it's when you have like energy and when you have tough energy to begin with, you will try to seek out different energy to either balance you out or take the pressure off, which can help you just live your life. So that's that for today. I hope you enjoyed this. You know where to find me if you have questions, and thank you for watching.